again, my friend. This time, wow. I think we were talking about this yesterday, and I think this may be unobjectively the greatest Survivor Series ever. Like,
I don't want to cop out and say that the first Survivor Series I ever watched was the best Survivor Series, but this was damn good. And I'm going to drop some trivia on you real quick. This Survivor Series 2002 is the only Survivor Series in history to not have a traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series match.
Well, actually, no, you're wrong. 1998, the Deadly Game Tournament did not have a Survivor Series match.
Damn you. I forgot about that, and we were talking about that last night.
Oh,
but
man.
Still, the pay-per-view revolved around elimination. That has always been Survivor Series' thing over the years. And even though 1998 and this pay-per-view don't have any tag team, 5-on-5 traditional tag team matches, this would usher in the first ever Elimination Chamber match.
Elimination Chamber!
But then they would edit his voice to sound really deeper and menacing, just sound like the Elimination Chamber. And me and my brother always thought that was the Big Show for some reason, saying that.
I thought it was Vince. I thought it was Vince McMahon himself, the devil himself.
And all along, it was Bischoff's voice, just more.
Yep.
Just sound like he was, dude.
Because in storyline, Bischoff was the creator of the Elimination Chamber, and we'll get to that and much, much more. But obviously, if you guys are new here, Tomas and I, my co-hosts, we're always here talking about wrestling every single month. We are getting down to the nitty-gritty here. We're already at Survivor Series. We started this retrospective back last June, I believe, and we've gone through all the 2002 pay-per-views so far, and we've got 2 more to go, including this one. If this sounds like content you're interested in, obviously I also talk about movies and all things entertainment, so hit that subscribe button if you're new here, if you haven't already, and you can celebrate also by hitting that thumbs up button at the end of by the end of the video, rather, if you enjoy this this argument that Tomas and I are about to have, or many arguments, or like, honestly, this time I don't feel like there's going to be as many rants. I feel like there's just going to be a bunch of interesting insider trivia thrown into the mix.
Oh, yeah. I will say what I really liked about this pay-per-view, that there was no filler on this pay-per-view. There was only 6 matches, but every single match felt important.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think this is a good example of quality is better than quantity, because I would rather have 4 or 5, like NXT TakeOver, for example. I would rather have 5 really solid matches than, 15 terrible matches that feel like they're a chore to watch, to sit through, basically.
I feel like that was the dig at Survivor Series 98.
You know what? It wasn't. It 100% was not.
Oh, man. Well, I mean,
the minute I was saying, like, oh, he thinks I'm going to talk shit about
I know.
Which,
but
honestly, I wasn't.
Let me just clear the air real quick. Tomas, I'm sure he's going to disagree with me on this, but the greatest Survivor Series of all time is still a really tough subject for us. I mean, even with a great show like this one. But I don't know. I always have had a soft spot for the 1998 Survivor Series, the Deadly Game Tournament. I watched that VHS tape all the time as a kid, and it's long gone now, and I'm very sad about that. But, it was, obviously The Rock's my favorite wrestler of all time, and that was his first WWF title win, so I just feel like I have a soft spot for that one. But this one also.
Yeah, and I feel like we have a soft spot for this one, too. And before we get into the actual show, this show was emanating from the world-famous Madison Square Garden in New York City, a venue that WWE has a lot of memories, including this show. And if there's something I've always liked about MSG, is I really always liked that very small, intimate entranceway that was just those 2 big doors that the wrestlers would push their way through, small ramp, there's the ring, and just surrounded by, thousands and thousands of fans. Yep. I know they would go on to do this with another pay-per-view, I believe.
Royal
Rumble 2006.
Royal Rumble 2008 is the one you're thinking of.
Yes, 2008. And then I know they did some Monday Night Raws with that same setup as well. But I always liked that. And as a kid, that always stuck out to me. Like, you're used to, this big Titantron and the big ramp and all that. But I like this. This was really cool. And there's going to be a couple of times that I refer back to this set and how these matches, kind of played out. And that whenever I think about Survivor Series 2002, of course I think about the Elimination Chamber, but I always think about that classic MSG setup. Obviously, they didn't do it for WrestleMania 20 because I think that would be a disservice.
A bit of a disservice to WrestleMania, and they were building up WrestleMania 20
But they did still use that LED board to show what match was playing at the time. Like they would show, John Cena versus Big Show for the United States Championship, Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle for the WWE title. That would be the marquee board. And I really appreciated them still using that LED board for WrestleMania 20.
Or Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg. One of those. You gotta do the Brock Lesnar impression always whenever we talk about that. But obviously, we're getting a year ahead of ourselves. Up first is a very fun match, Tomas.
Yes, a very fun match indeed, which looking at it may seem a little disjointed, but we have 3-minute warning consisting of Rosie, Jamal, and Rico taking on Spike Dudley, Bubba Ray Dudley, and Jeff Hardy in a 6-man elimination tables match. Well, if you can't have a 5-on-5, why not have a 3-on-3 and let's throw some tables in there, just to make it more fun.
Because
you look at this match and you think, yeah, you got one half of the Dudley boys in Bubba Ray. You have Spike Dudley, who always hung around the Dudleys.
Poor Spike.
He was never really a part of that core Dudley boys team. He always just, was kind of featured in the Dudley boys. And then you have Jeff Hardy, another half of a fantastic tag team. But him and his brother Matt, who we'll talk about later in the show, got split up in the draft. Yep. So you got, Jeff Hardy and Bubba Ray and Spike, all, 3 disjointed members of a team taking on this super faction at the time, which was Rosie, Jamal, and Rico. And one thing that a little bit of a side thing for this review for me would be, I don't know if we talked about this before, but 3-minute warning had a banger of a theme song, and unfortunately, the younger generation will never get to hear that theme song because WWE and Peacock have edited it out of every single pay-per-view they were a part of.
I'm so sad.
Do yourself a favor, YouTube the original 3-minute warning theme song, and I guarantee you'll be banging your head along with it because it is so good.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But this match was fast and furious right from the get-go. The baby faces hold the ring early on. Spike does the what's up drop to Jamal, which just does not, it's not the same with with Spike doing
it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and then Jeff,
nothing against Spike.
No.
Nothing against Spike and Jeff, of course. Spike, I think is a very underrated wrestler, and that man is a human crash test dummy because some of the spots I've seen this man take, not only in WWE, but ECW, I'm surprised this man is still walking. He is a human crash test dummy. And this match show, you got a point where Bubba Ray lifts Spike over his head and throws him onto Rosie and Jamal, but he might as well just throw a pillow at them. But then Jeff Hardy comes out of nowhere and does a poetry in motion over Bubba Ray, crashing in a 3-minute warning. I always thought that was a fun spot.
Yeah, this was the perfect choice for an opener because of spots like that. And, just to kind of bury the lead and get to your point, Spike is actually the first one eliminated because 3-minute warning literally drops him face first through a table. And nasty.
That looked like it hurt.
Nasty spot. Probably ironically enough, I thought this was the nastiest elimination, compared to especially the next one, but Jesus.
I will say though, you talk about things that don't feel right. Jeff Hardy doing poetry in motion with Bubba Ray, it doesn't feel right. It
is Survivor Series though, so you do get those odd couple pairings every once in a while.
Exactly, yeah. Like I said, it just felt like a member of 3 disjointed tag teams kind of just meshed together. And the weird thing about this match is that there were times where it really worked, but then there were times where it really didn't work.
No.
I have mixed feelings about this match because there were some really good sequences like the one we just talked about. There were some really good eliminations, but then there were times where the match just got downright sloppy. And when I'm talking about downright sloppy, unfortunately, I am talking about Jeff Hardy. I feel like this was Jeff Hardy's awkward first year as a singles competitor. and he was still trying to gain his footing as the singles guy and trying to, you know, make his name. And unfortunately, there were some spots in this match where he was just downright sloppy.
I didn't think he was all that bad in this match. I didn't really like, there was one spot that I noticed, like, you know, I'll agree with you. But like, that wasn't until like right before he was eliminated. But they fight into the crowd. Jeff and the two big Samoan badasses fight into the crowd. Bubba follows them, and he actually does hit Rosie with a movie theater scansion, which could not have felt good, you know, as someone who worked at a theater for 3 years. So, like, those things are heavy. Those are really freaking heavy things, and Rosie takes a shot right there in the gut. And then Jeff Hardy climbs up to the top of the, so you have Madison Square Garden, you have the set, looking, right at the hard cam, and right directly opposite the entranceway, there's another spot, like, almost identical to that little entryway, except you don't have the big LEDs there. Jeff climbs to the top of that. Yeah, kind of like
a weird scaffolding.
Yeah, Jeff climbs to the top of that, and a la Royal Rumble 2000 in the exact same building against the Dudley Boys, ironically enough. He replicates the same spot, swanton bombs Rosie through the table. What a moment. Really cool. Really cool callback.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the highlight of this match. Yeah. And there were at times, especially in the beginning of this match, again, I just felt a little disjointed, where a few minutes would go by and you realize, wait, no one has gotten eliminated yet. You know, this match was so weird with pacing. It'd be like 100 moves a minute, and then they would slow down, and then they would speed up, and then they would slow down, you know?
Yes.
I don't know. Like, I have a love-hate relationship with this match because it has fantastic spots like the one you were just talking about. But then there are times where you kind of forget, like, oh, shoot, nothing's really happened in like 5, 6, 7 minutes have gone by.
Yeah, and speaking of disjointed, like, I'll agree with you. There were a few miscommunications, including a spot that's edited out of the network version. You'll notice that Rico kind of goes up to the top rope for a moonsault whenever you go back and rewatch it. And there's like an awkward like jump cut in there. And that's apparently because Jeff Hardy missed his cue to, you know, straddle the rope. And apparently Rico would yell, I actually wrote this down, "Come on, Jeff, god damn it!"
So that's the word I edited out. But Jeff Hardy is able to come and try and save that spot where he, you know, he's very talented. He was able to crotch Rico from like the other side of the ring because Rico's on this ring post right here, and Jeff runs to the opposite side and hits that ring post, and apparently that was enough to, like, you know, just vibrate the entire ring because Rico's able to fall off.
Physics.
Jeff must have panicked at that point.
Yeah, Rico clearly did not study physics whenever he was growing up in college or whatever. But so another point, this is the botch from Jeff Hardy I was talking about. He goes outside with Jamal, and he goes to do the running spot on the barricade for a little launching pad sequence. Jamal literally throws a table and hits Jeff Hardy right in the fucking head. That... Good Lord, man. I was scared for my life even watching this back then that Jeff was going to freaking kill himself one of these days. But
yeah, that was a nasty spot. And once Jeff and Spike are gone, you kind of realize that Bubba's kind of been carrying this match on his own. And at this point, it's 2-on-1 at this point. It's Rosie and Jamal versus Bubba Ray, or was it Rico?
It was Jamal and Rico, and actually I'd like to praise Jamal for a second, who would later on become Umaga, the Samoan Savage, as I'm sure most of you know. After that spot where he throws the table in Jeff's face, he actually does set up another table on the outside, and this big 375-pound badass climbs up to the top rope, hits a big Superfly splash through the table to Jeff on the outside. What a cool visual. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. I feel like, especially, you know, you see a lot of wrestlers and you think like, oh, you think about their past gimmicks and how bad they were. No, I think Rosie and Jamal were very underrated workers. And I don't think, even though they were involved in some pretty bad storylines, you know, how did they not put the tag team titles on these guys? They could have ran, you know, with proper booking. And see to the marks out there who think that, oh, everything in the past was better. There was bad booking back then. How do you not put the tag team titles on these guys and just have them run rap shot all over Raw for like a year? Because you have two 300-pound men. They should be dominating the tag team scene.
not only running roughshod, but running roughshod all over the lower mid-card scene on Raw. Not even, like, you know, going into the upper echelon, going after Van Dam or, like, Booker T or Goldust or any of those guys. So
no, they had them target Mae Young and Jimmy Snuka and lesbians. Remember that. That was their hit list.
Michael Cole screaming out.
Not Van Dam, not Booker T, not Kane, not Shawn Michaels, not Triple H, Mae Young, Jimmy Snuka, and lesbians.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
I think you described them in that same video as diamonds in the rough. I think there's no other perfect way to describe 3-minute warning, guys. But there it is 2-on-1 at this point, of course, Bubba against Jamal and Rico. Bubba's set up on the top rope and Jamal goes up and it looks like he's about to try like a Hurricane Rana or something. And then he like, you know, pops off to the crowd and then Bubba telegraphs it, power bombs Jamal through the table. And that's all she wrote. That was, pretty obvious spot, I think, because I don't think Jamal, like, as athletic as he was, I don't think he was going to do a top rope Hurricane Rana. But technically, it's down to Bubba and Rico 1-on-1, and we get to what I think is the most famous spot of this match. Rico needs help from his already eliminated teammates, and Bubba's being beaten down 3-on-1, and when you don't think anybody's going to come out and save him, out comes Devon Dudley. And he's not dressed up as a reverend. You know, this is old OG Devon Dudley again, and he's coming to help out his half-brother. He beats off 3-minute warning, and then classic Dudley boys 3D Rico through a table, no DQ. Bubba Ray wins. What a moment. And the two embrace, and there they are back together again after being
love that look on Bubba Ray's face. And then Jerry Lawler calls it out. I think it's just setting in now what happened to Bubba Ray Dudley. And he realizes that, you know, the Dudley boys are back. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you could say like, oh, they just failed with Devon and, you know, what was the point of splitting them up if they were going to come back together? But this was one of those moments that just felt right.
Yeah.
And I will go as far as saying, I know everyone loves Bubba Ray Dudley, but I still think to this day splitting them up was a bad idea.
Yeah, those damn Dudleys were something else. As JR always called
they're my favorite tag team of all time.
Yeah.
So I will never complain about a Dudley Boys reunion.
They're up there. Yeah, it was an emotional reunion. Bubba with freaking tears in his eyes as he hugs his brother. It was awesome, and the crowd popped huge for it. 3.25 stars for me. This was a really fun opener. I think it was the right choice for the curtain jerker. Lots of cool table spots, but I do agree with you, a little bit disjointed here and there, but I'm not going to let that downgrade the match too harshly.
Yeah, 3.25 as well. Very solid, and I feel like this match could have been a lot better without that disjointedness. And like I said, just some sloppy work from like, you know, guys like Spike and like Jeff. But like I said, this was Jeff's. I feel like this was his rough draft before coming a single star, before he would go off to TNA and before he would come back. And, you know, but if there's one thing about Jeff Hardy, I will say, no matter where he was always over. And he was super over tonight. And I think that's why WWE wanted to, even back in 2002, when he had that match with The Undertaker for the WWE Championship. And when they split him and Matt off, they saw something in Jeff.
Yeah.
And Jeff could trip over his feet a million times and botch every move, and the fans would still be behind him.
Yeah, and the fans certainly were behind Jeff, and they still are to this day. I mean, I still pull for Jeff Hardy whenever I see him. You know, I'm still waiting for him to bring back No More Words, but who knows when that's going to happen.
He actually, in an interview, said the minute they get live crowds back, he will bring back that theme song, and he said that was actually part of his contract negotiations. He said one of the perks for him staying is that he gets to bring back that theme song, but he doesn't want to bring it back in the Thunderdome.
Yeah, I totally understand that. But hey, speaking of theme songs, as just a little transition between this and the next matchup, I would like to mention that we are taken to WWF New York, or now known as The World because it's not WWF anymore. Stacy Keibler introduces us to Saliva, who sing Always, which is a bop of a theme song. I think it's the best pay-per-view theme song of all time. I still listen to that thing on loop sometimes.
It's a good one. It's definitely top 5. And as we especially go in the next year, this is when I started noticing theme songs. and this one's up there. It's definitely up there. I don't know how I got this mixed up with Headstrong by Trapped, but we'll be talking about that theme song when we get into the 2003 pay-per-views.
That wasn't even Saliva.
I know, it's Trapped.
Yeah, but so our next matchup is for the Cruiserweight Championship. Yours and my favorite wrestler, Jamie Noble, is defending against Billy Kidman, who holds 2 non-title victories over Jamie Noble heading into this. And Billy Kidman also comes out with a brand spanking new theme song. It's hip hop. It does not fit him.
It was a guilty pleasure though.
Oh, I like the song, but I just think it was attached to the wrong wrestler.
Oh yeah, it was always a guilty pleasure. And WWE nowadays is guilty of giving a wrestler a theme song and then taking it away from them and repackaging it to be another superstar's theme song. Think about Team Bad, how their theme song got rearranged to be the Street Profits theme song. And nowadays I can't think about Team Bad anymore because they repackaged it to be the Street Profits. But definitely, I feel like they could have done this with this theme song too. Again, wrong person, but it was a guilty pleasure. I remember having the album Theme Addict, and Kidman's theme song was always a go-to.
Yep.
And shockingly, Theodore Long's theme song is a bop as well.
Oh, yeah, Mac Militant. Yeah, I love that song. It's a good one. But this was your typical cruiserweight match. These guys only got 7.5 minutes to work, but for what they got, they tried to. This wasn't. Jamie Noble had been champion for about 5 months up to this point, and I will admit, even he had better matches than this.
If I were to nitpick, when I saw this match was coming up, I was like, has Noble ran out of opponents? Because we just saw this match.
Right.
Well, we saw him fight.
It was
win the title from Hurricane.
Yeah.
And then he fought Kidman. And then he fought Tajiri. And here he is back at Kidman. And I started getting worried. I'm like, has Noble ran out of opponents already? Because I kind of forgot that Kidman won the title at this pay-per-view. I thought Noble would go on to hold it longer than this. But again, this wasn't a bad match. I've seen it before.
Yeah, I think their match at Vengeance was for sure better than this. They did get their typical spots in. There were a couple of really sick little spots thrown in there. Jamie Noble gets Kidman up on the top rope and he hits the Randy Orton-esque draping DDT, and the crowd reacted like Kidman had like spiked and broke his neck on that one, but that was a good near fall. And
Kidman
Noble
sold that DDT very well.
Noble was whining like a little baby after that. I was like, oh man, the way Noble sold that near fall was so hilarious.
Yeah, that was a disgusting spot. But you know what's more disgusting than that? Billy Kidman's shooting star press. And I'm so sad to say we have to start talking about this.
Oh boy.
So
here we go.
Kidman is the first wrestler I've ever seen. He may be the pioneer of the shooting star press, but he did not deliver that move well. And as we'll see later on in his career, he performed it very unsafely. And he is the reason why the shooting star press got banned in the WWE for, 4 years?
Yeah.
Before Matt Sydal, of all people, brought it back.
Yeah.
And if you look at how wrestlers, when you see how wrestlers perform that move nowadays, and you look about how Kidman did it, how did Kidman get away with that? Because wrestlers nowadays, they do like a safe full rotation in the air, but Kidman is falling while he's flipping. So he doesn't have that safe, full body press onto his opponent. And, I don't want to talk about this spot now. I want to save it for when we actually get to that match and we get to that angle. Yeah. But just go back and watch Kidman's shooting star, and I don't like watching it nowadays because it's disgusting.
It was a stiff shooting star press here and probably knocked the wind out of Jamie Noble, but it did garner him a 3 count and a Cruiserweight Championship for, I believe, the 3rd time in his career at this point. Great reign for Jamie Noble, who was another diamond in the rough on the SmackDown side of things. He held the title for a good 5 months, and he was a huge star. He was a huge deal. Perfect character, but Kidman just got the better of him here.
Oh, yeah. It was time for Noble to give up the title, and Noble was one of those dastardly heels as a kid that I hated so much. And every single time he defended that title, I wanted him to lose it. So I'm sure 8-year-old me was happy to see him lose. But thankfully, this isn't the end of Jamie Noble. We're going to be talking about him for a couple more years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But I gave the match 2 3/4 stars. It was fine for what it was. I mean, they, like I said, they only got about 8 minutes. So I think their vengeance match was longer.
This was probably the low point of the show, and that's saying a lot because this was still a good match.
Yeah.
It was just, out of all the other matches that happened tonight, this was probably the lowest point. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So our next, before I let you introduce this next match, I would like to talk about this backstage promo that Kurt Angle has, because you gotta have a funny Kurt Angle promo thrown into this pay-per-view. Yeah, no, he's just sitting there on a TV in the locker room with Chris Benoit, and he's just absolutely baffled at the fact that Billy Kidman won the Cruiserweight title. Like, why would Kurt be so upset about that? Like,
because bad guys don't like good guys.
Why does he care?
It reminds me.
Why does he care, though?
It reminds me of another pay-per-view, and again, not to jump the hurdle too much, but no. I think Booker. Okay, I think I remember that. I think it was Armageddon 2003, and Booker T beat Mark Henry in the opener, and then it cuts to the back, and Eric Bischoff goes, "Oh man, this is not how I wanted this pay-per-view to start." And I'm just like, it's just bad guys can't be happy.
Why do you care?
Guys. So
you're the one that books the match, Eric.
Angle just has to. Yeah. So this is just Angle just having to piss on all over the baby faces.
Yeah, and like
he can't be happy for them.
Yeah, he was like, if Billy freaking Kidman can win the Cruiserweight title, we should easily be able to get back our tag team titles tonight, as long as you stay out of our way. As long as you stay out of the captain's way. And and Benoit is like absolutely baffled that Kurt just called himself the team captain, and like Kurt tries to calm him down. And then Benoit, of all things, like he calms down, sticks out his hand for a handshake, and then Kurt's like, "I'm not gonna shake your hand. Tag team partners don't shake hands, because tag team partners got a hug." And he like pulls Benoit in for a big ol' embrace, and Benoit has like the best expression of like, "Please get off of me."
He's having none of it.
Kurt just...
That was my favorite part of Angle and Benoit's chemistry. It was definitely an underrated pairing at the time, and it was great.
Yeah, it was. Angle was the perfect goofball to Benoit's no nonsense attitude. So, which is saying a lot because Kurt was not messing around in the ring either. So
yeah. And before we get to the next match too, I want to bring this up because I want to get your opinion on it. How did you? Because they cut back to F-View, and I totally forgot about this. This was Bischoff's way of creating more shock television for Monday Night Raw. So he would set up hidden cameras all around backstage to catch wrestlers in the act of doing, crazy things. So we cut to Victoria, who is about to, and FU was adopted by TNA later on, like 10 years later, and they would do kind of the same thing where, because everyone says in pro wrestling, like, oh, if we're not supposed to do this conversation, why is there a camera right there? Why is there a cameraman in between these two wrestlers? So the cameraman would be hiding behind things and would be a little more candid, a little more incognito stuff. So I actually really like this idea of the hidden camera stuff. Well, we cut to Victoria, who is challenging Trish Stratus for the Women's Championship in a hardcore women's match, something that we didn't really see a lot back in the day.
Nope.
And she's looking at the mirror. And I want to talk about Victoria's character during this match, because she's doing the typical mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the prettiest diva of them all? And apparently the mirror says Trish Stratus, and that just makes Victoria go crazy, and she breaks the mirror, and she is just total psychopath. So I thought that was worth bringing up because there was other FU segments throughout like 2002 and 2003 that it was definitely a concept ahead of its time.
Yeah, it reminded me, honestly, it was like GTV done better. If anybody remembers GTV,
Yeah.
No one exposed the culprit.
I think they could have gotten a lot more creative with that match. But like I said, Women's Championship on the line. Trish Stratus versus Victoria in a hardcore match. And if you want to talk about matches beyond their time, this one right here, this match was pretty damn good. With a couple of little nitpicks here and there, I think these women, these are two very solid. Victoria just got into the company a couple months ago. And I know fans may have been upset that Victoria didn't win the championship at No Mercy, but that was building up to this match right here.
Yeah.
We complained throughout this entire retrospective that the women weren't given enough time and the women weren't given, the proper spotlight, but we finally got this. And of course, 8-year-old me didn't appreciate this match at the time, but I look back in this and think, wow, these ladies were way ahead of their time. Yeah. And we just saw Victoria in the 2021 Royal Rumble's women's match. And I think that if Victoria wanted to strap on the boots again, she would fit right in with the current women's roster.
Totally. So I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to also complain that this match did not get enough time. They only got 7 minutes. I think they could have done
for sure. They
even
had to
more with
a lot into those 7 minutes, though.
Yeah, no, they were using a lot of weapons that you would normally see in a hardcore match around this time. Victoria was choking Trish with a broomstick, which is very symbolic of this character. Wicked Witch of the East, indeed. Trish was, whipping Victoria with a Singapore cane, and Trish also pulls out an iron board that she struggles to set up. But
that reminded me of China versus Jeff Jarrett in the
good housekeeping match. Oh my God.
I think that was Unforgiven 99.
Yeah, Unforgiven or
98
or No Mercy, one of those two.
No Mercy. It was No Mercy.
It was No Mercy.
It was No Mercy 98, I think.
98
because I know after he dropped the title, he went back to WCW. Not to get off topic, but the Iron Board did remind me of that match.
Yeah. They also pull out the trash can lids, and Victoria gets a bloody nose off of one of these shots. I believe Trish slingshotted her face first into a trash can that was set up in the corner, and Victoria hit right dadgum nose first into that trash can, and boy howdy is she bleeding.
Oh yeah, these ladies are taking some stiff shots.
Yeah.
And this is a rare moment where I actually have to criticize JR's commentary. Because believe it or not, JR was the one bugging me in this match, not Jerry Lawler.
Really?
Because 3 times JR brings up, oh, these beautiful women. And I was like, JR, that's irrelevant to what's going on in this match right now. It was a little shocking to hear from him.
Yeah.
And yes, Trish Stratus and Victoria are 2 beautiful women. You don't got to bring this up in this match. This is a hardcore match. They're trying to literally bash each other's faces in for the women's championship.
Yeah.
Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, you're not going to say, look at these 2 handsome men. That's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's all
I'm
about.
Sure they are very handsome, but that's irrelevant.
I was enjoying the match too much, really, to notice that. But I definitely see where you're coming from. He did call Victoria a Jezebel at the end of the match, which is a common term he would use to describe the heel women or the evil women. But
it's a term you won't hear nowadays in WWE programming.
No. But Victoria grabs one of those mirrors that you were talking about from under the ring, and she didn't end up using it. But I'm really curious as to what would have happened if she actually did bash that mirror over Trish.
That would be terrible. And
it would be.
Cringe thinking about a mirror shot in WWE.
I know. Yeah,
that's some CZW shit right there.
You're right.
Hell, that's some shit I could see John Moxley and AEW pulling off, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. But getting into one of my other nitpicks with this match, I thought the finish was pretty weak, if I'm being honest. Victoria
it was
sprays her with the fire extinguisher from under the ring, and then she just hits her with a snap suplex, and that's enough to pin Trish and win the women's championship. A snap suplex.
I understand that Victoria was still pretty new and she hadn't developed the Widow's Peak, which is a pretty badass finishing move that she would later on have. But if she doesn't have a finisher, why not finish the match with a chair shot or a trash can shot or putting her through a table? A snap suplex?
If you're going to do a suplex, at least do it through a table or on a trash can, God forbid.
Or a brainbuster, or, again, I agree. Yeah, that was a very, very, very weak and underwhelming finish.
Yeah.
Those were my only nitpicks about the match. I enjoyed this match. Looking at this match 20 years later, I very much enjoyed it. I give it 3 stars. and it's definitely the best women's match we've seen since we started this retrospective.
Yeah, I gave it 2 3/4. I really did enjoy it. I just wanted a little bit more time for them to really showcase what they could do. But yeah, I do agree.
Oh yeah,
best women's match we've seen all year on pay-per-view, at least.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember I would always rent these DVDs, and they had extras on there. And one of the extras was a interview with Victoria, and the interview was kind of a shoot interview, because Victoria was kind of out of character. She was happy she wins the women's championship. And at some point, I think she was being interviewed by Terry. Mm-hmm. And Terry kind of brings up, what do you say to all the fans that say, like, what we do is fake and all that? And I think Victoria said, well, I sure hope nothing we did out there looked fake. And
yeah,
I always remember that interview. I don't know why. But it was like, no, nothing out there looked fake. They were taking some very stiff shots. And if given some more creativity, I think they could have gotten, even better.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. Speaking of shoot interviews, I would like to talk about this segment before we get into this next match here. Brock Lesnar is backstage getting ready for his WWE title defense. And Paul Heyman comes out of the locker room, and he is clutching the title belt as if it's his sick puppy about to go be euthanized. And he is scared for Brock Lesnar like he's never been scared before. Because Brock has a broken rib, legitimately a broken rib, and he's going into a WWE Championship match against the Large Performance, known here as the Big Show, of course. So the large I know, yeah, I had to say that. Brock Lesnar versus the Large Performance for the WWE Championship, or the Big Show, however you want to call him. So the Big Show was traded over to SmackDown. He immediately puts the Undertaker on the shelf, and he starts to pick a fight with Brock Lesnar, the WWE champion. And Brock is having none of this. And Paul Heyman, the video package before the match was basically saying, like, you can't suplex the Big Show. You can't beat the Big Show. He's too big. And, like, they were talking about how Brock was the underdog going into this. And then there was that little glimmer of hope, the line that Michael Cole says, maybe Brock Lesnar can beat the Big Show,
And this was pretty early in Big Show's career. Well, first of all, this is the biggest push since he debuted in 1998. Remember, Big Show had some attitude problems, so he had to, get sent down to OVW for some, for some conditioning. He was in the doghouse for a very long time.
He was.
And Big Show was still pretty protected around this time. So the thought of Big Show being lifted up was just as unfathomable as it was for the thought of Andre the Giant being lifted up. Right. So this isn't nowadays where, like, Cena has lifted him, and Kane has lifted him, and Angle has lifted him, and, Braun Strowman has lifted him. No one has really slammed the Big Show before.
Blasphemous.
So the thought of, I remember as a kid, I was hook, line, and sinker in this feud thinking, can Brock Lesnar F5 the Big Show? And that's all I wanted to see.
Oh, man, for sure. I've got a lot of praise for Brock Lesnar that I want to get into. But before that, little piece of trivia for all the viewers out there for the class. So the Big Show, as much as you were talking about how he was in the doghouse and how this was his biggest push since 1999, I believe, this was not supposed to be his title match. This match right here was supposed to be the triumphant return in Madison Square Garden of Hollywood Hulk Hogan challenging Brock Lesnar for the title, challenging the guy that put him on the shelf back in August, I want to say, with that, deadly bear hug. And actually, I think a big reason why this match didn't happen with Hogan was it was in the cards that Brock was supposed to beat him clean yet again. I don't think Hulk Hogan wanted to play ball and put him over. So I think that's part of why this match happened.
If that's the case, then you know what? Good, because surprisingly, we got a better match out of this. Exactly. We got a better match than I think anything Lesnar. And so if Hogan didn't want to play ball, fine. Big Show was willing to play ball.
And you know what's even more amazing? This match did not even go 5 minutes.
Nope. Because like you said, Lesnar was hurt. And you know what? Looking back at this match was exactly what it needed to be. Mm-hmm. I know we use that term a lot nowadays. This match was exactly what it needed to be. We didn't want to see Lesnar and Big Show go for 20 minutes, and we definitely didn't want to see anything that could have exposed these guys. So as shocking as this match went, it's exactly what it needed to be. And I remember looking at this match as a kid and thinking, what the hell just happened? Like, the match ended and then everything happened. And, you know, the bell rings and they don't waste any time. Big Show Lesnar gets right up in Big Show's face. And I also want to point out in this match that Big Show was wearing the largest pair of Wrangler jeans I've ever seen in my life. This is
yes, he was. The Big Show is the largest performing spokesman of Wrangler jeans I've ever seen. You know,
and Lesnar is out guns a-blazing, and he immediately belly to bellies the Big Show.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking, holy shit, Brock Lesnar just threw this man over his head.
Like
500
nobody's business.
Behemoth over his head like it was a sack of potatoes.
And the crowd was into Brock Lesnar. I think, again, if this was against Hogan, I think the intended purpose of bringing Hogan back in as this triumphant babyface would have completely backfired, because this crowd was into everything Brock Lesnar was doing. The Big Show was a perfect opponent for him in Madison Square Garden.
Oh yeah,
and
Lesnar was playing a pretty damn good babyface at this point too, which he would continue to build on after this pay-per-view. Yep. So I don't think necessarily the plan was for Lesnar to be so over, but this is probably the only time we're going to see white meat babyface Brock Lesnar from this, you know, for a better part of 6 months.
He was a babyface that took no prisoners. He was a man on a mission. And his mission was make sure that the Big Show knew that he was the dominant force on SmackDown.
Yeah, Lesnar's attitude in this match was basically, you think I can't lift the Big Show? Well, fuck you, I can lift the Big Show, and I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to belly to belly him. I'm going to suplex him. Like it was nobody's business.
To take a famous line from Gorilla Monsoon, this really was the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. And the immovable object was certainly movable, because Brock Lesnar was hitting German suplexes on this guy, and he eventually does lift him up and hits him with the F5. Wow, what a pop for that. And Paul Heyman is absolutely shooketh at ringside that Brock actually got him up and hit the F5.
Well, also before that, Lesnar went to go tackle the Big Show, but Big Show moved out of the way, and Lesnar just bulldozes right through the referee. The referee was down.
Poor Mike Chioda took that was a vicious bump that Mike Chioda took on that tackle, by the way.
And then when Lesnar goes for the pin and a new referee comes out, we get the Madison Square Garden screw job.
Oh,
Paul Heyman turns on his client, Brock Lesnar. And I remember just being so mind blown over that Heyman turned on his guy, pulled the referee out, and then Lesnar did not hesitate. There was no emotion in his face. He wasn't upset. There was no questions. He immediately ran out of the ring and went for Heyman. And I think that just says a lot right there. Like, you know, when someone's best friend turns on them, like, you know, they probably have questions. They're probably concerned. They're probably wondering what's going on. No, Lesnar immediately was about ready to rip Heyman's head off.
Yeah, Brock knew exactly what was up, because in that promo that I was talking about before we got into this match, Paul Heyman said the ominous words, "I will do everything in my power to make sure that in my hometown that my client leaves with the WWE Championship." He didn't explicitly say, "I'm going to make sure that Brock Lesnar leaves with the title. I'm going to make sure my client leaves with the title." And it turns out that the Big Show was his client the whole time. M. Night Shyamalan must have written this show, because this was a plot twist and a half back in the day. Big Show, there was a chair that was introduced. Heyman basically is chased by Lesnar back into the ring, and he lures him right into the Big Show. He threw his former guy to the wolves. Big Show chokeslams Lesnar and his bad ribs on the chair. And for the third straight match, we have a new champion. The WWE champion now, the Large Performance, or the Big Show, whatever you want to call him, Tomas. But, wow.
And Big Show and Heyman, they are like two bad guys in a Wild Wild West movie, because they take their title, they run out of Madison Square Garden, they got a limousine waiting for them, and they got the hell out of there. This match was the definition of blink and you miss it.
Mm-hmm. You know,
and it was fun.
Yeah, you know, if it didn't have the big storyline attached to it as a match, I'd probably give it like a 2, but with the angle and everything attached to it, I probably would up it to a 3, maybe even a 3.5 if I'm being
Yeah,
really really generous. But
I'd give it 3 stars, and that's a very positive 3 stars right there. This was a memory, definitely, for sure. And if you like twists and turns and you didn't see anything coming, like watching this blindly, you know, I don't think we could have predicted this to happen. And for Heyman to turn on Lesnar, you know, to this day, Heyman has been faithful to Brock Lesnar. And that was the only time, you know, Heyman turned on him. So that was pretty insane.
Pretty nuts, yeah. And especially considering that Paul Heyman, I'm assuming, is still Brock Lesnar's advocate, even though Brock hasn't been on TV in over a year. But here's the thing, guys. Say what you want about Brock Lesnar, but that rib injury that they were talking about during this match was not a gimmick. That was a legitimate broken rib that Brock was wrestling with. And I believe he also had a torn PCL in his right leg. So the fact that he was able to not just work this match with those two devastating injuries, but also the fact that he was able to lift up a 500-pound man over his shoulders and hit the F5 just speaks volumes about Brock Lesnar as a worker. That dude is a freak of nature, and he is a tough son of a bitch. So
he 100% is. And yeah, that was a fun match. That was a very, very, very fun match.
Yep. And this would not be the end of Brock in the title scene. This story's just getting started, and it's just getting
basically strap on your seatbelts. We're in for a wild ride from now until WrestleMania.
Yep. Yep.
On to next. Surprisingly, this was the palate cleanser of the show. Surprisingly, and you would think so, this match being wedged in between the 2 world title matches, but this was nothing. This was anything but filler, because we got Edge and Rey Mysterio defending the WWE Tag Team titles against Eddie Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero. Eddie and Chavo, Los Guerreros, and Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit in a triple threat elimination match for said tag team titles.
Yep.
I got a question for you, honestly.
What's up?
How does this match compare to the Angle, Benoit, Edge, Mysterio match from No Mercy?
No Mercy match was better for me. I'm being completely honest there. So
I had a feeling you'd say that.
I actually think I also liked their 2 out of 3 falls match from SmackDown, where Edge and Mysterio won the belts from Angle and Benoit. It was very similar to the No Mercy match in a lot of ways, but it was super exciting in a lot of facets. Not to say that this match wasn't, of course not. And you also have the elimination thing attached to it because it's Survivor Series, but I don't know about you. I feel like this match would have been better if it wasn't elimination.
I can see where you're coming from there. Definitely the elimination stipulation was probably because it's Survivor Series and there's no traditional elimination matches on here. So they kind of had to wedge that in there. But definitely, I think a 1 fall to a finish would have created more tension in this match. And, you know, because when it's elimination, then you don't need to break up pins. You don't need to, you know, break up submissions, because you want the other teams to get eliminated. When you have that 1 fall to a finish, you know, it's absolute mayhem. I think a good comparison would be the triple threat tag team match we just got at TakeOver between MSK, Grizzled Young Veterans, and Legado del Fantasma. That was 1 fall to a finish, and it was absolute mayhem. Not saying that this match wasn't, that there was just not that added tension, because, you know, it was elimination.
It was, yeah. And you have, like, you just have 2 falls as opposed to 1 to a finish. But this was, Mysterio actually does get a grand entrance on the side of Madison Square Garden, and he goes through a big mob of people to get to the ring. I remember that being a fond memory. I was like, oh, Mysterio's all the way on the other side of the arena. It's not entering like everybody else is. But this was the SmackDown 6. This was it right here. So that should really tell you what this match was like. Fast and furious moves, you know, all over the place. It was lovely wrestling. I actually wrote down Taz did mock Michael Cole a lot for explaining the rules as much as he was. But I mean, it's
I
better.
heard that.
I mean, it's a lot better than like going into an eye for an eye match or something and not knowing what the rules are. Like, you know, they were
exactly.
like, how do you win
I remember Taz at one point saying like, geez, Cole, you think you've explained the rules enough? And, you know, people do wonder that, like, why do the commentators got to explain the rules so much or like remind us that it's no disqualification? Because there are fans out there that will forget that, like, you know, oh, why is this person in there? Or like, oh, why can this person do this? Like, I think the commentators got to constantly remind the audience, because I remember this was actually a point someone brought up, I think back in like 2012, where they were wondering, like, you know, we watch Monday Night Raw every week. We watch SmackDown every week. Why do you got to introduce these guys back to us? And then they brought up the great Stan Lee, who said, in every issue of a comic book, there's always going to be a brand new reader. So that's why he feels the need to reintroduce all these characters and these heroes. I think the same way goes for pro wrestling, not only for the wrestlers, but for the matches as well. There's always going to be a new viewer. So even though we know how an elimination tag team match works, there's definitely going to be someone out there that doesn't know what that is.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, that's why they explain the rules at the Royal Rumble every year. That was the first
but two
show,
times in one night, that's a bit much.
Yeah, that was the first show my girlfriend watched with me, and you know, she was a first-time viewer, so she had to have the rules explained to her. So
yeah.
But a lot of this first portion of the match was Angle and Benoit against the champions. Los Guerreros their strategy was make sure we stay on the apron and out of this match as much as we can. And when Kurt Angle needed to tag out, you know, he slapped Eddie on the chest and he was like, and then the ref was like, you're in. He's like, oh, me, Holmes?
You talk about those damn Dudleys? Well, pinche guerreros is all I have to say.
Of course. Eddie does, there was, oh man. So you want to talk about painful spots. Edge was the legal man, I believe, against Benoit at some point. And Benoit locks in the crossface, and then right behind him, Kurt Angle locks in the ankle lock, and he's in both of those submission holds at once. Like
that was probably my favorite spot of the night right there. And how do you not tap out from that? You got, you know, your face is being smothered. You got your arm being like yanked out of its socket. You got your ankle probably getting ready to get twisted right off the bone. That was not a predicament I would want to be in.
I think Michael Cole even asked that question. He was like, how does Edge not tap out to this?
Yeah.
It's a good question, Michael Cole. Yeah, but it's great wrestling. Mysterio missile drop kicks Angle out of the ring. So here's what happens. So Benoit does have a crossface on Edge once again, and Chavo Guerrero, who according to Eddie Guerrero has a little girl's voice, he clocks Benoit in the back with a championship, and then he tosses it to Kurt Angle, and Chris, you know, he was selling the title belt shot, and he looks up just in time to see the belt in Angle's hands. And this is the point where this is the odd couple pairing. They don't exactly trust one another. Benoit thinks Angle hit him, when in reality Chavo was the one that did it. And they get to jammering. It's great comedy. Angle sent back outside. Edge spears Benoit, and that's it. The crowd was pissed that Angle and Benoit were the first ones out. They were not happy. Even though they were the heels, they were appreciative that these guys were great wrestlers. But this is just the beginning for these two. This team would not last a whole lot longer after this match. They would go on to have an instant classic match of the Royal Rumble that I can't wait to talk about.
And I was going to say, we're going to talk about that one, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, if there's one nitpick I would have with this entire thing is that, have you noticed these tag team titles are only a couple of months old, and we're hot potatoing them around a lot, especially when we get to the end of this match. It's like WWE couldn't decide who they wanted to hold on to these things. It kind of, you know, the tag team situation in NXT with the women reminded me of this.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. So we're down to Edge and Mysterio against Los Guerreros, and the crowd kind of dies down a little bit because Angle and Benoit are not in the match anymore. But this wrestling is really good between the final four. So 619s everywhere, 619 to Eddie Guerrero. There's chaos. Edge and Chavo get into it on the outside. And Eddie locks in the lasso from El Paso submission, which is a lost move in Eddie Guerrero's arsenal. But it is like, it's a sharpshooter / Texas cloverleaf, but it's a lot more painful. And it's like pressure. It's more pressure on the neck rather than on the back. And
it's a move that Eddie didn't bust out enough. But when I saw that, it's like, how do you not tap out to that? And Edge does tap out to that, doesn't he?
Mysterio tapped out to it.
Mysterio taps out to it, yes. So there you go. Eddie and Chavo are your new WWE Tag Team Champions. And let me tell you, this was the beginning of something beautiful. Because this was the birth of Los Guerreros. And despite me not being happy that the tag team titles are getting hot potatoed, this was just the beginning of something that would evolve into, I would even say, probably top 5 tag teams right here. Eddie and Chavo.
Loved Los Guerreros. I thought their beginning was like even before this at No Mercy. You remember that segment where Eddie thinks that Eddie doesn't think that Chavo's being beat up, but them winning the tag team titles, this was the launching pad.
Yes. For, 100%.
I
can't wait to talk about what they do in the future. This match, I think I'm comfortable giving this match 4 stars because this was a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. Not as good as the No Mercy match, but all 6 of these guys gelled together pretty well. And they put on a very fun match, which was supposed to be the palate cleanser of the show.
Yeah. I think, if I'm being really generous, I think I'll give it 4, but I think 3 3/4 might be more accurately how I'm feeling because, like, the elimination did kind of, like, tamper with the match a little bit for me, and the crowd did die down a lot once Angle and Benoit were eliminated, so, notice how Kurt Angle wasn't the one pinned, because there'll be something important that happens to him at Armageddon. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. Eddie and Chavo, this was just a launching pad, and they were crafty veterans that knew each other extremely well. And they started to show glimpses of lying, cheating, and stealing in this one because they barely tagged into this first part of the match. Anytime, like, I don't know, say like Chris Benoit was going over to try and give them a hot tag, both Eddie and Chavo were like, and then they hop down off the apron and they're like, nope, we don't want in this match. And then Benoit's like, what are you doing?
It's like, it's so crazy because Eddie and Chavo are supposed to be heels, but thankfully they get immediately turn into baby faces because how do you hate these guys?
You can't. They're way too endearing. They're way too endearing with what
they're
doing.
Exactly. You know? Like, I always look back at their matches. It's like, how the hell do you hate these guys? You can't. You can't hate Los Guerreros.
You can't. Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about them even more. But here they are, the tag team champions. Before we get into this main event, we have something else pretty interesting to talk about, Tomas. Christopher Nowinski walks down the aisleway. And his gimmick is that he's a legitimate Harvard graduate and a pompous ass at that. He gets on the mic, he gets on the horn.
But let me tell you something real quick. Nowinski, him being a Harvard grad, that ain't no gimmick.
No.
I have heard from so many wrestlers that he is probably the smartest guy to ever be in that locker room.
Yeah.
And even just as recently, he requested a piece of Benoit's brain so they could study it. Yeah. And they could advance studies on concussions. And I just think that Nowinski's career may have not been that memorable, but the fact that his legacy still lives on to this day, that man is he's a modern day Einstein, honestly.
He is
not get enough credit.
Smart man. And I feel like a big motivation for him requesting a piece of Benoit's brain and why he was so fascinated by it was because he was in the wrestling business too. And he himself got a lot of concussions, and that's why he stepped away ultimately. But Nowinski gets on the horn and he starts berating the New York crowd. He starts calling them stupid because none of them are Harvard graduates like him. How does he know that? But out comes Matt Hardy version 1 to interrupt him. And he's like...
And did you know? Know that Matt Hardy only drinks low-fat chocolate milk? Quick story time.
I did not know that.
This is a question I legitimately asked him the first time I met him.
Oh my God, no!
He was signing my things.
You did not.
I forgot what he was signing, but he was signing for me. And I go, hey, Matt, do you still like chocolate milk? And he goes, ooh, I love chocolate milk. You know what else I love? A nice glass of orange juice. No pulp, though. I'm like, this man is a national treasure.
If
so
I
saw that, I immediately flashed back. I'm like, I asked him if he liked chocolate milk, and he said yes.
I really need
to. He knew what I was talking about.
I really need to pay attention to those matter of facts a lot more often. I should.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I should keep a log of them from now on. Every time he's on one of these retros, I should write them down and say, "Hey, this was the matter of facts. This pay-per-view." In this case, Matt only drinks low-fat chocolate milk. To your point.
Oh yeah, and these are questions that you will ask him in real life. The opportunity you get to meet him, because he will answer them.
Of course, I can't wait. But he interrupts Christopher Nowinski. He gets on the mic and he's like, "How dare you? These New Yorkers aren't stupid because they're clearly losers." And like you think he's gonna defend them, and then remember he's a pissant heel too, so he's got to turn on a dime.
This was excellent heel work by both of them, because Matt Hardy then goes on to explain that he was expecting this Madison Square Garden to be filled with Mattitude. And I noticed the broken Matt voice in his voice. I'm like, oh, okay, that's always been there. This isn't new. This has always been a part of Matt.
Always.
And then he says, but this building is literally sucking the Mattitude out of me. And he begins to get on the ground. He starts coughing his lungs out. And this is excellent heel work by both of them.
And then they eventually get to a compromise where they say New Yorkers are losers and they're stupid. And I'm like, geez, like you guys are just
they're looped.
They're looped. They're looped. Look that up in Urban Dictionary.
So what happens next?
This. Oh
this
boy.
Leads to you think about this and you think, oh, it's maybe dumb, but the crowd popped because this was the debut of Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner in the WWE. They have been running vignettes for him all like for the past few weeks, saying that Steiner's finally in WWE. And did they even advertise him for Survivor Series, or was this a surprise?
I don't even know. It must have been a surprise. And I think, the DVD, which I do have somewhere in my house, actually, touts this, the debut of Scott Steiner, is going to be on the same level of, an Undertaker debut at Survivor Series, or The Rock's debut at Survivor Series, or Kurt Angle's debut at Survivor Series.
Steiner, I don't like Steiner. I think he's probably on... He's down there with some of my most hated wrestlers, because not only is he a terrible wrestler, he's a horrible human being. And I didn't really like him. 8-year-old me was excited to see this new wrestler coming to WWE. Yeah. But also looking back on it, what the hell was WWE smoking when they decided to make him a babyface?
That was gonna be my next thing. And I'm sure we're going to rant about this on every single pod going forward.
Did WWE even watch WCW? Did they not see how Steiner was one of the biggest heels in that promotion?
He was a douchebag.
He was a douchebag. He would beat up his own brother. And didn't he beat women? And didn't he do all these terrible things in WCW? And I'm just thinking, I get it. The fans are going to pop for him.
Well,
but you don't make Steiner a baby face.
That screams baby face to me. This is some good shit.
Oh, my God. That bugs me. And, thankfully, this is going to blow up in WWE's face in 2 months. It takes 2 months for them to ruin Steiner.
I can't fucking wait to eviscerate him. But even he you could tell this is something else that WWE cuts out of the Peacock network version of this. So this should really tell you all you need to know, that he should be a heel. So he beats up. So Chris Nowinski and Matt Hardy. He knows what I'm gonna get to. So here it is. Hold on. So
my favorite moment in history.
Oh boy. So he beats up Chris Nowinski and he beats up Matt Hardy. He tosses them both out. He's got the ring to himself. It cuts to a crowd shot, and all you hear is, "Give me the fucking mic." And then he gets on the mic and he says, God, I wrote this down somewhere. "This goes to all my freaks in New York City. Big Papa Pump is your hookup. Holla if you hear me." That was his whole promo. And then he just
that's up there as one of my favorite botches of all time.
Oh,
there's
man.
two of them. There's that one, and then I think it's the Road Warriors. They're like cutting this promo like out in this open field, and they're like walking down a hill. And I don't know if it's Hawk or Anna, but one of them says, "Somebody give me a fucking towel." But then when I saw the crowd shot, the first thing I thought was, "Somebody give me a fucking mic."
Give me the fucking mic.
For that line and that line alone.
Got
the
it.
segment gets 5 stars.
Anyway, yeah, but it's all downhill from here. Scott Steiner is not nearly as entertaining as he was right here, but yeah, look out, especially for the Royal Rumble podcast, the 2003 one in a couple months, where I'm so looking forward to eviscerating his match. But getting before the main event, Shawn Michaels is getting interviewed by Terry backstage, and he doesn't even get a sentence in. And he's cut off by RNN. Breaking news. For those of you who don't know what this is Randy News Network for a very young, for injury updates on a very young Randall Keith Orton. And he is the most pompous ass on this news network you can imagine. He's like...
He is basically saying, don't worry to all my adoring fans. I'm making a comeback. Yeah, I'm making a comeback, and I will be back before you know it. So keep sending in those emails. Keep sending in that support. If this angle was run in 2021, he probably would have set up a GoFundMe page for himself.
Oh my
God! I would
have
loved to see a modern take on this angle because they could get so creative with it. They could say, totally. You know, like, oh, donate to my GoFundMe. So I think Big Money Matt Hardy did something like that in Ring of Honor, where he was saying like, oh, my estate took a big hit. Now I need a GoFundMe page so I can afford to get all my expensive things. Like, I would love to see a modern take on this because it was worked out perfectly. And Randy Orton's injury to his shoulder was actually a blessing in disguise because he was able to, you know, be playful and do something like this and basically interrupt Shawn Michaels in the middle of his comeback interview.
He was like, at this point in his career, he was like Kurt Angle when he made his debut back in 1999 in the sense that he thought he was doing some really good shit and being very gratuitous towards the people, but the people booed him. You know, it's just one of those types of characters. And
and he pulled it off so well. And I feel like Randy Orton in the beginning of his career, I mean, who was he before this injury angle? He was just this plain white meat baby face. Honestly, not impressive. I remember watching him as a kid and just going, meh.
Yeah,
thankfully, again, this injury was a blessing in disguise because, you know, you want to talk about all downhill. It's all downhill here for Randy Orton.
Or uphill, rather. Uphill.
I think I misused that phrase.
Thank you. It's all good. If it was all downhill from Scott Steiner, needless to say, as we get deeper into 2003 especially, you'll especially see an upward trajectory for Mr. Orton. But the time has come. The main event of Survivor Series 2002 is the first ever Elimination Chamber match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Triple H is defending...
Now, let me tell you something.
Go ahead.
If you don't know what the Elimination Chamber is, it is over 10 tons of steel.
Yep.
Over 2 miles of solid chain. Bulletproof plexiglass. Remember that phrase.
Yep.
Bulletproof plexiglass. And how do I know this? Because Eric Bischoff goes out of his way to get inside the chamber and just explain again how devastating this monstrosity of a structure is. To all you young wrestling fans out there that are used to seeing an Elimination Chamber match every year, go back, do your homework, do your history report, and watch this match right here, because this is the one that started it all.
Yeah.
And Bischoff explaining this was all new to us. Like, we saw this monstrosity and just thinking, what the hell is this thing?
And
I like how Bischoff went in with the lead pipe and was just like smacking around just to show everyone this is real steel.
Yep.
And you know.
And as he was doing that, bless Howard Finkel's soul, but I'm glad that as Bischoff was cutting this promo, he was also explaining the rules to us as the viewers, because this is his creation. And I feel like it was only fitting that for the first ever chamber match, the guy that like came up with this whole concept, was the guy to explain it all to us and how it was going to work.
And I don't even think anyone knew the rules to this point. I don't think they explained it on TV. They just, so you're going into this match and you're wondering, how does it work? And there you go. 2 minutes before the match, you got Bischoff explaining the rules.
Yeah.
So this really was his brainchild.
It really was. But you have Triple H defending against Rob Van Dam, Chris Jericho, who entered to a lost theme by Saliva called King of My World, which is also a bop. Do yourself a favor and listen to that, because Jericho only used it for like 3 weeks, no more than a month. It's a lost theme out there. Listen to it, because I think Jericho should have used that theme for longer, at least for the rest of his first WWE run.
This was a very short entrance for Jericho, and it was very awkward that Saliva had to sing the entire song.
And like totally
Jericho definitely was milking it, but he was already in his pod, and I think Saliva still had a good minute of the song still left to sing.
Yep, they did. But yeah, Jericho gets in there. Booker T, Kane, and Shawn Michaels, who you might remember Triple H got very close to crippling at SummerSlam in Tomas's favorite match of all time in the aftermath of that. So it starts off with Rob Van Dam and Triple H, and right away, it takes Hunter about 2 minutes to get into a blade job. And I think that right there really accentuates how brutal this match was. Like,
oh yeah, Lord. And especially, again, back in the day, this was a brand new concept. It's not like today where we're kind of used to it and we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into. This was, this was new waters for everyone. And not just for the fans, it was new waters for the wrestlers as well. Because this was the first time they really got to feel this chamber out. I don't think they got to really get in there and bump before this match. And unfortunately, that would lead to some very disgusting bumps that we will definitely talk about later on in this match.
They were bumping hard on that steel. Van Dam actually does a rolling thunder over the top rope and to the steel floor onto Hunter. And the steel floor is flush with the level of the ring canvas. So that was a really creative spot. And props to Van Dam also. He wasn't in the match for very long, but he really found a way to pull out some innovative spots here.
Oh yeah. So like it was explained, the first 5 minutes are just, well, here's the thing, funny thing about in that first 5 minutes, Lawler actually brings up a very good point. And he says, this is something that we've been thinking about, leading up to this match. What happens if RVD pins Triple H in the first 5 minutes of the match? And JR said, oh, well, it's simple as that. Well, Triple H is eliminated. RVD has the ring to himself, and we're guaranteed a brand new World Heavyweight Champion.
Yep.
So I thought that was a very interesting point that you don't hear commentators bring up. They don't really talk about, what if this happens?
Right. Yeah, I don't think Triple H was getting eliminated right away, but they had to push him hard around this point. This is right in the smack dab in the middle of the Reign of Terror. So number 3 is Chris Jericho. 5 minutes goes by, and Jericho was really trying his damnedest also to make sure that Rob Van Dam wasn't pulling out all these high spots. Because even before he entered the match, Van Dam was teasing a spot off the top of the pod where Jericho was. And Jericho actually reached through the steel chain mesh and tripped up Van Dam, and that could not have been comfortable of a landing for RVD. But yeah, so Jericho and Hunter actually work together, and they're whipping Van Dam against the chain back and forth against the ropes and back again. It looks like it hurts a lot.
And again, these are simple spots that we're used to seeing because we know we get a chamber match every year. But again, back then, we never seen this before. So seeing them getting slammed on the steel and getting whipped against that chain, that chain wall, it was definitely a sight to behold.
Yes, it absolutely was. I'm so glad that they actually came up with a new concept for this instead of what they were planning on doing, because another piece of trivia for behind the scenes people, this was supposed to be the return of War Games, which was a WCW concept. Bischoff and Triple H were both pushing really hard for it, but I guess one of the big reasons why War Games wasn't brought in is because around this point, not to get political, but the U.S. was deep into its conflict with the Middle East and Iraq and Afghanistan, so a lot of people were sensitive around the term war around that point. So I'm glad that they at least, covered up for that.
They came up with something new and something that's definitely it is a staple in the WWE now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and we get more than one chamber match per year too, if we're lucky.
Oh, so. Yeah. So more time passes on, and then enters Kane.
Booker T was next, and he cleans house for a little bit. Goes after the heels, and he does a spin-a-rooney right in the middle of the chamber because, of course, he does. They got to put over the spin-a-rooney. Booker T and Rob Van Dam get into it for a little bit. Van Dam gets the upper hand, and then comes one of the most memorable, infamous spots of this match. Triple H is down. Van Dam finally goes up to the top of the pod, what he's been teasing for pretty much the whole match up to this point. He does the initials, and then he does the 5-star frog splash off the top of the pod on Hunter. And this is part of the reason why they expanded the new chamber to be taller, so they could do spots off the top of these pods more effectively. Van Dam was completely bent over backwards to launch himself for this 5-star. And he ended up,
Yeah, because he's like crouched.
He is.
On the top of that pod. And he looked like he had no room to work with.
Right.
Like he was even hesitant at times. Like, can I actually do this? Or, again, these wrestlers weren't allowed to get inside this chamber prior to the match and like get a feel around there. They were like, doing this all on the fly. So, what happens next is pretty devastating.
Yeah, he jumps off the pod, and to keep it short and sweet, he doesn't extend his legs all the way, and his left knee absolutely crushes Triple H's trachea, or his throat, or his larynx, whatever you want to call it. And Triple H was not able to breathe for a little bit. And this right here is actually part of the reason why I'm going to call Hunter the MVP of this match, because not only did he start it, and not only did he finish it, but he worked most of this match with a crushed throat right here. So, good Lord. Yeah.
And props to Triple H, for continuing this. This was like, the first 10, not even 15 minutes into the match?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got a long way to go, and he has a crushed windpipe on his hands.
Got another 20 minutes to go, so.
And you tell me, do you think this was calling an audible? Because right after this, RVD selling knee, and then Booker T goes for a missile dropkick and eliminates RVD right then and there. I don't know if RVD was hurt himself, but it looked like they had to get RVD out of the ring. And unfortunately, they couldn't do that with Triple H because he's the champion. You eliminate him, you can't do that. I know, spoiler alert, he does lose the title in this match, but you can't mess with the match to that extent. I'm sure if Triple H was that bad, they may have to done something like that. But I'm pretty sure Triple H was insisting, like, no, I'm good. Yep, I got a crushed windpipe, but I'm good.
Yeah, this is a guy who completely tore his quadriceps muscle off his leg on 2 different occasions, and he finished the match. So this is a tough son of a bitch, man. So this is actually, according to one of Chris Jericho's books, this is where they kind of have to call an audible in this match, because out of his pod next is Kane. And apparently he wasn't supposed to be the next one. He was supposed to be the last one out of his pod, but I guess the light hit the wrong one. It was supposed to be Michaels next, but they just switched the order around. But Kane comes in,
and Zack, we're theater guys, so this is gonna hit close to home. This is why tech rehearsal is important.
Yep. Yep. I mean, tech rehearsals are long, and it's worth it though, for sure.
But they're necessary.
They're absolutely necessary. Yeah. But Kane comes in and he absolutely wipes Jericho out, and he, you mentioned the bulletproof plexiglass. Goodness gracious. Kane absolutely hoists Jericho through his own pod, and man, it is a sight.
Again, it is a sight because this plexiglass actually shatters, and it's not like the one they use nowadays where it just comes off its hinges and the whole panel comes off. No, that looked pretty damn painful getting careened through that thing, and it shatters like glass.
Yep. Bulletproof. Key word.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it was bulletproof.
To quote Lawler, it may be bulletproof, but it's not Kane-proof.
Damn it, don't make me spit out my Major Melon over here. because Lawler is somehow entertaining. But Booker T was eliminated shortly after this. I don't know how Jericho was able to get back up for this. But yeah, Kane hits a chokeslam, and then Jericho sneaks back in and hits a lion salt and eliminates Booker T, kind of playing into their little feud that they've had going on throughout the fall. But yeah, already 5 people have entered, and we've already eliminated 2, with 1 still to be released.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that they were booking Kane like the monster he is in this match. He was pretty dominant, and they kept him pretty strong until the end.
They weren't booking him like a geek like they were at No Mercy, for those of you who watched that pod.
No, absolutely not.
A lot to say about that.
And then finally, who was not supposed to enter the match, Shawn Michaels. For the first time since SummerSlam in August, Shawn Michaels is back in business once again, and he looked damn good in this match. Yep. His initial flurry looked pretty damn good.
It really did. And fun fact, this is Michaels' first match wrestling at Survivor Series since the infamous Montreal Screwjob. Think about that.
And they do bring that up on commentary.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, Shawn goes through a flurry. Kane is chokeslamming Shawn Michaels. He's chokeslamming Triple H. I think he was gonna... Oh, yeah, no, he hit a chokeslam on Jericho also, but he doesn't go for a pin on any of them. Of course not, because he's got to hit a tombstone on Triple H. He goes for a tombstone, Triple H flips out of it, and Michaels hits him with a super kick right into a pedigree, and then Jericho hits a lion salt more than halfway across the ring. I thought that was really impressive. Jericho pins Kane. It took finishers from all 3 remaining competitors, but Kane is gone.
Yeah, they kept Kane pretty strong until his elimination, that I do appreciate. And then after this, one thing came into my mind that I never thought of before.
Yeah.
Wow, what a triple threat match this would be. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Jericho.
And we never got that, did we?
That's a shame that we never got that. It's a shame they never utilized Jericho to his full potential at this point. Because I just looked at that and thought, damn, what a match that would be.
And what a match it was for what we got. And it was just a sneak preview of what we would get between Michaels and Jericho at Mania 19. Not to jump the gun too much, but man, these 3, this is where the match gets amazing, I think. Because these 3 went in there and they were just hitting so many great wrestling maneuvers, so many great near falls. A lion salt and gets a 2 on Shawn Michaels. Michaels locks in the walls of Jericho at one point, which I thought was really sweet. But then this is kind of one nitpick with this match. Jericho has Michaels pinned from something.
I know where you're going. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Here it is. Jericho has Michaels pinned, and then Hunter pulls Jericho off of Michaels. Why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah. Why?
It's elimination.
Why would you do that? Yeah.
It's elimination.
If anything, if you're Triple H, you would want Michaels gone, because Michaels is the last person you want to face in this chamber, considering, smashed his back in with a sledgehammer a few months ago. But that actually, that's not what I thought you were going to say. I actually remembered something that I'm surprised you didn't bring up.
What's that?
And I think this was because Triple H was kind of, still suffering that botched frog splash, because he hits when RVD hit that frog splash, RVD did go for a pin, and Triple H put his foot on the rope. It's an elimination chamber match.
Oh,
why are there rope
yep.
But
that's
all
so
things
true.
Considered,
Right.
Triple H probably couldn't even breathe, and he couldn't probably get his shoulder up. So that was probably his only way out of that situation right there.
Ironically enough, I don't think he was focused on psychology. I think he was focused on making sure he could still breathe so that he could finish the match.
Yeah.
So
I saw that. I was like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. But considering what just happened to Triple H, okay, everybody gets one. Everybody gets one.
It probably wasn't at the forefront of his mind, so I can understand in that regard.
No, again, Jericho, the old term, that was on pure instinct. I think that was on pure instinct.
Oh, totally. Wrestling, 101 instincts coming into play there. Jericho locks in the walls on Hunter, and then out of nowhere, Shawn super kicks Jericho right into fucking space, and it's down to 2. Michaels and Helmsley.
And what an exchange this is.
Yeah, what an exchange. I think they were destined to do this forever.
And, considering this was just a mini match we got between Michaels and Triple H, and it was still damn near 5-star caliber right here. This was a fantastic exchange.
And both guys were a bloody mess too. Triple H hoyed Shawn Michaels to another one of those bulletproof plexiglass pods at one point. Michaels hits an elbow drop off the top of another pod to Hunter. Like, this just, like, I think they only went, like, I didn't time all these eliminations, obviously, but they got a good 5 minutes or so to, like, finish the match off at least. And Hunter, they tried to tell as big of a story as they could. Their big story is going to come next month at Armageddon. But man, oh man, Hunter hits a pedigree. Crowd was booing a lot because they were like, oh no, we really want to see Shawn win this, but we don't know. We don't, like, nobody had any fucking clue that Shawn was going to be wrestling full time after this. So they really wanted to see him win this belt though, because they really could not stand Hunter at this point. Pedigree, and the crowd comes alive when Shawn kicks out, and then you know where this is going. Sweet chin music, 3 counts. And no one can fucking believe it. And most of all, JR, who is losing his mind. Like, he says, Shawn Michaels is the world champion. And Jerry Lawler's like, what did you say? Even he can't believe it.
For the first time in 5 years, since Shawn Michaels thought he was never going to wrestle again, is the world champion. And that's a memory right there. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch this pay-per-view live, but just knowing that Michaels, I don't know, like I said, ever since Shawn Michaels debuted, there was just something that caught my eye about him. And even though I've only seen Michaels wrestle a couple of times at this point, that was just pure bliss, seeing Michaels with the World Heavyweight Championship at that point.
I will never forget
this chamber.
I'll never forget the pop he got also.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
and the confetti and the celebration.
World. Out of this world, in Madison Square Garden of all places, just awesome stuff.
For the first chamber match ever, I give it 4.5 stars.
I did
too.
The
beginning was a little rocky. And there were some botches. There were some botches because the wrestlers have never worked this kind of match before. But definitely, as the match kept going, it got better, and they started getting more comfortable in there. And then the good spots came out, and that. Honestly, the latter half of that match is what makes this match. The stuff between Triple H and Jericho and Michaels, and especially with Triple H and Michaels, this was a pretty damn good inaugural Elimination Chamber match.
It really was.
And I don't think this concept would still be around today if this first match wasn't as good as it was.
Oh, totally agreed. And it's really hard to top this chamber match in my eyes. I mean, there's been a lot of good ones, really good chamber matches in recent years, but similar to how I feel about the first Hell in a Cell match in 1997, it's hard to forget your first and how good it was. But yeah, great main event, 4.5 stars. What can
Survivor Series 2002? I think I'm comfortable giving this a 9 out of 10.
Yep. Yeah.
There were some very solid matches on here. And honestly, despite my nitpicks, this was just a show of good memories. Like, even back in the day, I remember the Elimination Table match and Devon returning. I remember Brock Lesnar and the Big Show and what they did for the championship. I remember that triple threat tag team match. I remember the Hardcore Women's Championship match. And I damn well remember that main event. So this show gets this almost perfect rating for the memories alone, honestly.
Yep, and we should not leave the memories alone like Ric Flair when he retired. But in any case, I'm gonna match your 9 out of 10 on this one. This is I think it might be unobjectively, if it's not the greatest Survivor Series of all time, it's definitely in the top 3. Again, for a year like 2002 to give us the greatest SummerSlam of all time and one of the greatest Survivor Series of all time, like, that's a pretty damn good summer going into the fall. again, there's a lot of memories I have of this show. I've seen this show so many times. I can't wait to rewatch it so many more. If you haven't seen Survivor Series 2002, what the heck are you doing? It's a great show.
Great show. Speaking of memorable pay-per-views, the next pay-per-view we're going to review is the very first pay-per-view that my family personally ordered, and Zack's, Armageddon 2002, the last pay-per-view of 2002.
Sheesh, already.
And that is one doozy of a main event.
Already, man. Yeah, time has flown by. Everybody, yes, please stay tuned for our look at Armageddon 2002. And we're, of course, going to keep looking at these new AEW shows. Double or Nothing is coming up. Blood and Guts also, I'm thinking about possibly doing. WrestleMania Backlash, or Backlash, just Backlash as Tomas calls it. But anyway, guys, yeah, so you got that to look forward to, and much more, including all of my nifty movie reviews over here. Like I said, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also celebrate making it to the end of this video by hitting that thumbs up button on your way out. That would mean the world. If you also click on that notification bell down below, you guys can be the first ones to know anytime a new upload hits the channel here. But yeah, thanks, guys. I think that'll do it for Survivor Series 2002. Of course, look out for more exciting content very soon. With all that being said, Back Talk, commence.